everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Real quick, want to remind everybody hit that like, share, and subscribe. There's a PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love, and the StreamYard link's down there for everybody who wants to join the panel. Reminding me, we got John and Dean up here with us. How you doing tonight, guys?
Hey there, brothers. How you doing? I'm doing well. It's been a good day. Sun's shining. It's warm.
Hi, Keith.
Robin says
Hi,
hello.
Robin. And we've got Iman joining us. How you doing today, sister?
All is well, brother. All is well.
Good.
I can barely hear her. So she was talking yesterday on your show. I mean, she's very, very, like, her voice is very silent.
Well, they may be messing with my phone, and so I'm doing it from my phone. I could try to do it from my other device though.
Yeah, no worries. I just letting you know it's not coming across real clear what you're saying. And now it sounds like mine might not be either, so who knows.
Well, hey Dean, how you doing? Hey everybody.
Hey.
All right. Well, as we've been talking about lately, the lingua franca and the language, the English language itself being a lingua franca and all twisted, and it's literally a spelling language, and that's why they call it spelling. Each letter has its own meaning and implication, and you can construct it in your own fashion. You can even create your own words and terminology and things like this. And as I've expressed, you can even create your own little chicken scratches as foreign representations. So basically, what we're talking about is getting back to the origins of the words that they use to help fix things. So one of my favorite topics has always been etymology. Tonight, we're going to look at the etymology. Oops, let me get back there. Again, of finance. And I've broken this down in a couple different ways before, but here on etymology it says finance means an end, settlement. So when you go to the bank and you get financed for a home, that's the settlement. If it's done right, it's already settled. Instead, people aren't qualifying things because they've never been educated. So again, even though you've been indoctrinated, there is a reason, and it's not just an accusatorial thing that we can do. We have to admit and agree that many of us have been indoctrinated through this term, finance.
So let me ask you something, Keith. I mean, you say that without qualifying. I know you've probably talked about that, but I mean, I'm not sure that I still comprehend exactly what that means. I mean, am I to just sign as I would normally sign, however, adding a little qualifier saying this is all bullshit above, or do I need to line item veto everything? I mean, what is the method of qualifying anything I'm going to put my sign of nature on? I guess would be the question.
Well, it just depends on what capacity you're asserting. Knowing those capacities, and that's what actually qualifies everything, is the knowledge. If you know what you're doing on this side of a bank counter in filling out an application, and that you're giving them data elements that they're going to attach an account number to for an enumeration system, there's got to be an equal exchange. And this is done through the various different terms. See, when they set out those terms and tell you what those terms are, that's what tells you that they're doing things backwards. And I'm going to hopefully show you guys some things to point that out. Let me look at 15 USC 1605. This is determination of finance charge. And under the definition of determination of finance charge, is it except as otherwise provided in this section, the amount of the finance charge in connection with any consumer credit transaction shall be determined as the sum of all charges. So when you pay somebody a $100 finance charge on one of those documents, and you have that $100 deposited in that financial institution, they are now obligated to extend credit if they haven't already done so. And that's what they're not doing. They're supposed to extend that credit.
Oh, I guarantee you they aren't. I know a guy who actually sells financing, and I can almost guarantee you, without knowing for sure, that he's never even heard of this rule. It's just not part of what he does.
Yeah, they don't teach anybody this. And it says, payable directly or indirectly by the person to whom the credit is extended. If not for yourself, there would be no credit extension, and therefore that it's telling you who it's payable directly or indirectly to. And
that's right. They'll put that contract in front of you, and that contract has zero value until I put my signature on it.
Correct.
And that's the thing that you might want to have. That's a conversation I'd like to have with one of these people about that. Like, you realize this, right?
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
my signature going to get me?
Exactly. What's the quid quo pro? What's the equal consideration, equal benefit? And imposed directly. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to rebuttal against what Dean said. As the creditor, and we are the lenders lending our signature to further credit to others, not ourselves.
Right. Yeah, and he was just pointing that out. They don't see that that aspect of it when it's inherently obvious. They wouldn't be able to make those transactions if not for the man signing for it. Indirectly by the creditor as an incident to the extension of credit. So the credit source is the thing, and it comes from you again. You are not the creditor. The credit gets it from you. You are the benefactor that places the facts in those and data elements in that record, that which is what's giving everything credence. It is to your credence. This is why I say fix your spiritual credence. Think about everything before you go signing those documents, and who it's actually going to, who that credit is actually going to be extended to, and is it going to be returned? That's circulation once again. The finance charge does not include charges of a type payable in a comparable cash transaction. So if they're accepting cash, the finance charge does not include charges of a type payable in a comparable cash transaction. They're saying cash transactions. So they want you to pay by cash. The finance charge shall not include fees and amounts imposed by third-party closing agents. Third-party closing agents, including settlement agents, attorneys, and escrow title companies. If the creditor does not require the imposition of the charges or other services provided, and does not retain the charges. And does not retain the charges. So when a creditor, like Credit One, charges off a debt and then sells it, he no longer retains the charges either way, either if he sells it or if he charges it off. And that's what they do. They charge it off and sell it. See, once it's charged off, it's just a fictional debt, and both parties know it. So then the third-party debt collector comes in and wants to make a claim, and what do? They issue their claim to the clerk of courts with their own account number. which is different from the original creditor account number, which they use the original credence number, which is the Social Security number, to sign up for all these documents. That clerk of the court just bought a debt, just like the third-party debt collector.
They're a bookie.
And then they're going to book an administrative law judge in a civil action to impose that debt against you. Another imposing of a third party. And in that, they convert those data elements, like I said, and I've got evidence that they don't use the last name. Well, they use it, but in that use, they convert it to the firm name, and they use the Social Security number as well and convert it to the obligor number. Things I was never noticed of. Examples of charges which are included in the finance charge include any of the following types of charges. Interest. What about the interest of the United States? See, the states all ceded their jurisdiction to the United States, and that's who finances them through all of those monetary clauses, particularly Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Time, price difference.
They got to be registered with Secretary of State as well. So, I mean, they're definitely a state-sanctioned whatever they're doing.
Right. Yeah, all through the Attorney General, the Governor, all of them. It's all a military commission. Time, price differential, and any amount payable under a point, discount, or other system or additional charges. Service or carrying charge. Loan fee, finder's fee, or similar charge. This is respective to salvation costs, expenses, rewards, prizes. Fee for an investigation or credit report. Term credit means the right granted by a creditor to a debtor to defer payment of debt, to incur debt and defer its payment. So either way, there's a deferment. And like I said, if the bank credit, or if the Credit One credit company already charged off the supposed credit card debt, when in fact you got to understand here as well that it's to Joyce's credit, and they charged it off as a loss. How is that? First and foremost, understand if the creditor is the one that issued the application and it is a security instrument and they used it against Joyce and are now claiming a loss in any venue, then they're not recognizing that credit is supposed to be returned to where credit is due.
You were just thinking the same thing I was saying. Giving credit where credit is due.
So let's go back. Look at the next one. Premium or other charge for any guarantee or insurance protecting the creditor against the obligor's default or other credit loss. This is an important term, obligor's default. See, the obligor, folks, like I've said before, is identified by the number. That's the Social Security number without the dashes. That's the thing they're converting, and they're converting it from its credit to its obligation. It's rerouting to a public liability. Creditor refers only to a person who both regularly extends, whether in connection with loans, sales of property or services, or otherwise, consumer credit, which is payable by agreement in more than 4 installment plans. What's wrong with that statement, folks? Anybody know? If you're the one that financed it, then isn't it already settled? If
Yes,
it's
that's
already
exactly
settled, then
right.
why are you making installment plans? I mean, isn't the one that issued the application to begin with the obligated party? Aren't they the
Yeah.
ones that enumerated that and then required a secondary enumeration of the Social Security number so they could connect?
Yeah, those are credit offers, Keith.
Right.
Applications.
Yeah, and it's a default. It's recognized as a default on the face. Why? Nobody's signing them with that qualified signature without recourse, without prejudice. Pay to the order of, and then write in the right capacities and sign it.
Right.
Put
That's a debtor
put
signature.
yeah, put that stamp on it, have it sent through the Treasury, have the Treasury do their job. It's their security, and you're qualified to sign it as a holder in due course. And as a holder in due course qualified to sign it, you're also qualified to direct its settlement.
Yeah, and that's why a loan officer is like a consultant for creating transferable instruments.
Right.
We're giving them a job.
Now, as we go on and look at the rest of it, it says retribution, end, ending, pardon. See, this is what I'm talking about with the guys that are sitting in prison, and many people have said before, you're sitting in prison because you volunteered. You made an agreement. You just don't understand the agreement. Remission, payment. This is a funny one, payment. Expense. We're going to look at this one too, expense. Settlement of debt. So when you finance something, it's the settlement of a debt. So why are you walking into an installment plan saying that debt is still there? Is that a new debt? Noun of action, from finer to end. Settle a dispute or debt. From fin, see fine as a noun. Compare medieval Latin, finus, a payment in settlement. Fine or tax. The notion is of ending by satisfying something that is due. Services due, dues exacted by the state, financial means. The French senses gradually were brought into English. Ransom, taxation. The sense of money, management of money, science of monetary business, first recorded in English in 1770. Finance as a verb is recorded from 1827. Again, late 15th century, to ransom. From finance as a noun, sense of to manage money. To furnish with money. Without those data elements, they can't create the money. Look at that dollar bill. You think that number on it with a letter before it doesn't match the letter and numbers on the back of a Social Security card? That's the Federal Reserve number, and those bills out there floating around, they make so many of them according to the enumeration that is assigned to the individual per state's vital statistics jurisdiction for each individual. It's on a dollar bill somewhere floating around. 1866, related financing. And again, folks, not legal advice. Just my own self-determinations from what I see. Termination, end of life, end, limit, boundary, death. A mortgage is a death pledge. Fee, payment. So when you're paying that mortgage, you're paying a death pledge. How many times are you going to pay a death pledge? How many times does a death pledge need to be paid, guys? I mean, if you're paying it every month, is there a new life every month? What the fuck? Think about this shit.
It should be just once, right? At the end of 30 years.
Well, at the end of your death, when you need to be buried, and you pay it to the people that are burying you, not some fucking foreigner that wants to bury you in their method and say, well, we're going to preserve a plot for you in our land. No, that's not the way it works. You let a man develop his own fucking will. Money. And that's exactly what this system does, is it denies that will by indoctrinating you into a lineated belief that you're part of this society, and everybody jumps off a bridge, so you got to too. It's stupid. From Latin finus, end, see finish as a verb. In medieval Latin also, payment in settlement, fine, or tax. Modern meaning, exaction of money payment for an offense or dereliction, is via a sense of sum of money paid for exemption from punishment. So if you're paying fines, guys, like I said, I don't pay them fines. That's payment for exemption of punishment. Come punish me, you motherfuckers. Or to compensate for injury, come collect. So, daddy, where I touched you. Mid-14th century, from the same sense in Anglo-French, late 13th century, such as to make fine, make one's peace. Told you, it's all about the peace treaties and negotiable instruments and making sure that you bring the peace. If you want peace, you must first bring the peace. If you want equity, you must first bring equity. You must come with clean hands. Settle a matter. You must be the settler. No one else will do it. They don't have clean hands. And they won't come with clean hands just for your ass. That paycheck is too much. Meaning sum of money imposed. What's that look like, guys? Is that a congressional authority? Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises?
Definitely it is. Under Congress.
Pecuniary resources, funds in money, 1730, modeled on the French cognate from plural of finance. Relative to it is toll, which is a tax, fee, impost, tribute. Did you contribute to the Federal Income Insurance Contributions Act? Did everything you do contribute to this society? Did you do so voluntarily, or was that residency deemed necessary by the board and you were forced into it? But in that enforcement, you were well compensated as an officer, agent, or resident. Silhouette. That's that shadow. That's that person. That's the expense. That's where the finance is. It's the record. Loss. To cut. Remember I said how many words are there that mean cut? To cut? Scissors ain't the only one. How about excise? That's got size in it. Losses is from 1885.
Excise is what the medical profession will do to, say, a tumor. They will excise it. They take it out.
Yep.
They also use the word incise as well in the medical
Yep, your
field.
incisors. Um, yeah, dental as well. Red in finance. Remember, you're either in the black or in the red. Red means overdrawn, losing money. High, yeah, high finance, concerned with large sums. Direction, nominative directio, a making straight, a making straight. See, everything's twisted and wrapped up and not working right, and people aren't understanding their position. We're going to make everything straight here. You're going to get it straight. Got it? Fund, a bottom. We talk about bottomry and salvage. Salvage, you can salvage a vessel all the way down to the last plank, and that's generally the bottom one. Go scuba diving along the ocean, find a bottom plank, and you can salvage that whole vessel. But when you do so and you christen it in a new name. You may not even know the name of that old vessel, but you know that plank survived. The bottom, foundation, groundwork. From French fond, a bottom, floor, ground. Business, care, anxiety. Occupation. Remember, we're talking about the occupied forces, right? Occupied. Back. That which may be sown. Seed. All from finance. You are the seed. You're the one that plants that seed in their record and that grows in a credit form and don't get to profit off of it without knowing. Once you know it and learn how it works, you can either stop it or prevent it unless it has certain benefit for you and others. That makes sense, guys?
Yes, it does make sense. It sounds like
Yeah, that's gonna be
intercourse
one
to
of those
me.
things. Gonna have to fuck around and find out.
Just like you said, it sounds like intercourse to me.
Yeah. I I got a little vivid with one of the credit collectors here I'm working on right now. They gave me a phone number, so I called up and they gave me a call center. I told them I want to speak to this Tim Dolan dude. This motherfucker's trying to have intercourse with my wife, and I want to know where his consent is. Click. They blocked my number.
Well, I just sent an email back to the Department of the Risk Management for the state, basically, again, reclaiming that they owe me just compensation for all this nonsense. They tried to weasel their way out of it, saying that that there's a completely separate entity in the county and the sheriff. It's like, no.
No, they all operate under the same entity, the state.
Right, and
Exactly. That's kind of my point.
we
They're
already
acting in
know
the
that
name of the
they're
state and on behalf of the state. So you don't get to
exactly.
claim they're outside your legal jurisdiction because then something doesn't add up.
Well,
Yep.
we already know they're trustees, right? And what does the sheriff does? He's the one who's in charge of collecting the taxes.
Yep. Martial law chiefly affects the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes. Now, if it's public revenue and taxes, they have to prove that you're a part of the public. Now, they say general public, and that's because everybody uses that little number on a mailbox attached to their house and a street address, a street name, which is street name security created by the municipality, claiming that they're residents of that municipality and the mayor is their boss. That's a military capacity. He's the commander in chief, just like the governor is of the state and just like the president is of the United States. He's the one commanding the sheriff. So anyway, it goes on. It says pensive as an adjective, and this is as it relates to expense that we saw in finance. And it's expensive to live this life. You know what I mean? Keep chasing them. Keep chasing them bags, guys. Sad, sorrowful, melancholy. Also engaged in serious thought.
Hey, Keith,
Meditative.
which bag? Which
Ye-
bag? Because remember, at one time they said a bag was a woman.
Yeah. Meditative, contemplative, from Old French. See, this is one of those things we talk about the lingua franca. I had a discussion with a quite egotistical gentleman the other night on a show, talking about the lingua franca in the comments, and he was trying to say that I didn't know anything about Franco-lingua. But I had to teach him a thing or two about etymology, and that what he was talking about was totally different than what I was, specifically because the way he stated it. So again, I tell you, a man's intellect is limited and biased by his vocabulary. Think about this, folks. This is French, and it's what we use in English. It's one of the most prominent languages that the English language adopts. Thoughtful, distracted, musing, from penser, to think, weigh, consider, equal consideration, equal benefit, frequentive. So that goes down to the knowledge. You have to consider, you have to think about it. That's the consideration, folks. Of pendir, to hang, cause to hang, weigh, pay, to draw, stretch, spin. So can you stretch your words like legalese and make them long paragraph sentences? Can you draw that out in an artistic form, spinning everything around? Meaning, expressing thoughtfulness with sadness, pensively or pensiveness, poise. So when you put those data elements down, and it's a poise. You hear this in the fashion industry. You want them to poise for you. It's pose. Same thing. English adoption of poise is pose. To have weight. A commercial pose in the fashion industry is a flattering physical pose that has a commercial weight. The better it looks, the more it's going to bring. A sense now obsolete from Old French poiser, stress form of pesser, to weigh. Be heavy, weigh down, be a burden, worry, be a concern. From vulgar Latin, pesare from Latin pensare, to weigh carefully, weigh out, counterbalance. To hang like on that balance so you can counterbalance. Cause to hang, weigh, pay, draw, stretch, pin, or spin. It's just repetitive. Be balanced or suspended. So is it expensive or is it pensive? And if so, why and how did you come to that determination? Were you just lucky? Or is it because you do your research, comprehend this stuff, and find out? Everything's backwards, folks. They brought you up in that public education system, didn't teach you a damn thing, except to remember, hey, say this when they ask you about this. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes. Dumbasses. Compensate, compensation, counterpoise, depend, dispense, equipoise, expend. It's an expenditure, right? It costs you, right? Are you getting a return on your expense? So let's go on to the next one. It's in the title of the stream, and that is sick bay. Remember, I talk about that spell of illness all the time, right, guys? A spell of illness, 42 U.S. Code 1395X. It's a set of definitions, and the first one on there says spell of illness. And we'll take a look at that real quick. As you see, 42 U.S. Code 1395X. First one, A, spell of illness. The term spell of illness, with respect to any individual, as it relates to records maintained on individuals under 5 U.S.C. 552A, means a period of consecutive days, beginning with the first day, the first day the baby's born, which may or may not be on the first day mom entered the hospital and registered. Not included in a previous spell of illness. So while mom's there, you're included in that previous spell of illness. You're included in her, and then you're expelled from mom's womb. You're cast forth from mom's womb. You're discharged to mom's waters. And what they do is they take that record that was already created and extend it. They give that record credence. Say, yeah, now we have life. But that's not what that documentation really shows. It shows the person, and nobody's taking credence for the spiritual life, the spiritual breath. Nobody's made that declaration. It's all a legal establishment through a legal name for legal fiction, a presumption of the facts. Break those presumptions and state your birthright. Boom. I'm sorry, you got it wrong. That documentation was birthed in a spell of illness, maybe. But remember, my mom wasn't ill. She was in labor, and she was performing good works, inspired by God, supposedly. That's what's missing, that element of thought preemptive of this person. So let's get back to it. Sick bay. Noun. Forepart of a ship's main deck, used as a hospital, 1580s. From sick, an adjective, plus bay, a second use noun. In the nautical sense, in reference to the forepart of a ship between decks. Forward of the bitts on either side, so called from being a recessed space. You got two bits, gentlemen, on either side being a recessed space between your legs. Bay, opening in a wall. Especially space between two columns. Look at that Social Security card, guys.
It's a Roman bank.
Opening, hole, gulf, noun use of feminine, past participle of bear, to gape, yawn. Yeah, it's from medieval Latin, bater, gape, which is where we also get our gate. To close a gaping hole in a fence, they used a gate. It was no longer gaping, it was gated. You have your gated communities, which is perhaps of imitative origin. The meaning, compartment for storage, is from 1550s. So a horse is put into the stall. That's his bay. They put him in the bay. They use both terms. It is the bay in sick bay and bay window. Somewhat confused with the bay.
And is it the stall in installment?
Correct. The mentality of being in your stall. You're in a sick bay. You've never recovered from that spell of illness. You might return to that inpatient hospital treatment for continuation of monitoring of that spell of illness. Sick as an adjective: ill, unwell, diseased, feeble, weak, corrupt. Now, these here, ill, unwell, diseased, feeble, and weak, these are all physical traits. Okay? When we get to corrupt, we've got a thing that has to do with both. It could be possibly both physical and mental. This goes to the mentality. Okay? Same with the sad, troubled, and deeply affected by strong feelings. But again, sad and troubled are the feeling part. Those are the intangible, where corrupt could have both physical and being tangible and intangible corruption. Sad and troubled are intangible corruptions themselves. Deeply affected by strong feelings would also be dual corruption by the feelings, and which are both physical feelings and mental feelings. Go ahead.
Doesn't this all speak directly to 1 USC 1 insanity?
Absolutely. That's the sickness. When you fall victim to the language and can't determine for yourself what is being said, but you sign on that document and say, well, I think I trust them, that it's my government, it's my community leaders, it's my neighbors, they wouldn't do that to me. It's my banker, he wouldn't do the fuck they won't. We already know better. It's time to learn better, and this is the only way. Understand that language. Isaiah 54:17. No tongue shall prosper against you, but you shall let no tongue, you shall rise up in judgment against anybody that condemns you, or condemn anybody that rises up against you in judgment. It's not their place. Oh, no man anything. So what is this debt about? I thought that was already settled. Didn't I finance this shit? Learn your position and learn how to assert it. They can't deny it. Throw the definitions at them in their codes and the etymology and the scriptures. They all correlate. They all say the same thing. And there's a certain minimum ones that tell them what their job is. Finance being one of them. Expense being another. They're all commercial terms that they're supposed to be familiar with. And if they're not, then they prove incompetent to know how the commercial system works. That's why I said, if you don't understand what banking is, why are you handing all your business over to a banker without knowing how to do that? I would much rather know how to do it than just hand it over to somebody knowing that it's very likely going to be corrupted one way or another. History proves this. Sick, ill, But in German and Dutch, it was displaced by crank, which means weak or slim, twisted, bent. See, crank. Restricted meaning of English, sick, is having an inclination to vomit, affected with nausea, is from 1610s. As distressed emotionally by grief, anger, etc., physically ill through emotional distress. The sense of tired or weary of something, disgusted from satiety, is from 1590s. Figurative phrase, sick and tired of, is a tetra from 1783. To worry oneself, 1952. So you see what they're doing is they're using that term as a part of a noun phrase, and they change that noun phrase over time, and everybody seems to think it changes the original meaning. It doesn't. It's changing the use. Now it's being used to mean tired, not ill or vomiting. The modern colloquial meaning, mentally twisted, is by 1955, a revival of the word's use in this sense from 1550s. The sense of spiritually or morally corrupt was in Old English, which also had sekmod, infirm of mind. And like I said, when it relates to these documentations in the court and the prescriptions, they're using the firm name, and that's what they're saying is infirm of mind. And like Dean referenced to 1 U.S.C. 1, again, I urge everybody to do your research and look at that and see where it's talking about insane. That's literally what they're defining, and they use that term as a substitution for the last name. They use the firm name, and now you are infirm of mind. If you don't understand the words and how they're being used against you, then you are sick. They're using all the data elements that you give them as an investment in a venture capital system. It's a capitalist system called venture capital, and you're investing in them by putting that intrinsic value in those documentations without understanding it so that you can get that credit back. Puerto Rico, rich port. Sorrow, meso, which is sick and leprous. Oriel, a portico or small room forming a projection, a room or building in the form of a large bay window. What's that window do? As a bay window, what does it do that other windows don't do? What's its purpose?
It bows out.
What do you put in that window?
Oh, don't you put plants in the bay window to collect the sunshine?
Right, you put plants and other things, knickknacks and all kinds of stuff in this bay window, and that bay window then holds those items. Just like a sick bay holds sick people, just like the bay of a boat holds property or goods and stuff. Right? You guys understand that? That's what a bay does.
Right, because you can even use the bay window you can use it as a shelving, a ledge to put documents on as well. Some people use it that way.
Yep, an inlet of a sea. What does it do? It holds in water from the outward seaward currents.
Like when you're talking about firm, law firm.
Yep, absolutely. Minger, it is itself a blend of mager and meager. See, meager, hanger, sick, haggard, which is possibly from Germanic. Sinus. Remember, I told you coin your words or purse your lips. A lot of people talk very nasally. Curve or cavity in the body. Bend, fold. Remember I said earlier, bent. See how sinus is related to bent, fold, curve, fold. Check this one out. What was it? A portico. So that's like a port, right? So, and Puerto Rico, right?
Right.
Now
When you
check
talk
this
about
out.
sinus, though, can't the sinus be the navel cavity or the nasal cavity?
Yeah, it's the nasal cavity. Yes, and again, it's got na in there as navel, nativity, nature. Those are all the same origin. So yes, the nasal cavity is different in each one of us and each and every creature. So then so under the sinus we have bend, fold, curve, a bent surface. And what is this? Fold. Can you guys see portfolio? Portfolio. Puerto Rico. Fold. Sinus. See, when you put out your words, you're putting out the portfolio. You're the one that expresses that person, and you write it down on a piece of paper, and then you fold it a couple times, and then send it in a vessel. You're the one porting everything in every manner. Quit it until you learn how to do it so that when it goes out, it vibrates and comes back to you. It's recognized and it's giving credit where credit is due. Go, profound. Go ahead.
Isn't that like when you send certified by mail signature where you get a receipt back?
Yep. And that's under that commanding officer shall cause receipts to be issued so that the spoliated owner may obtain indemnification. And if they can obtain indemnification and it was issued by the Postal Service, then where do we get indemnification? I think it's simple. So look at the next one. Sorcery, witchcraft, black magic, properly divination by communication. Aren't we always talking about communication? Isn't that what we're doing here? Talking about communication, which is a conveyance of a debt. Folk, common people, lady, men, people, nation, tribe, multitude, troop, army. Troop is the definition of a group of primates. What's your prime?
So the word being is not in there.
Right. So what is your primary purpose? So let's keep going here. Lie. Speak falsely, tell an untruth for the purpose of misleading. What is this from?
So you're a human being rather than what's in that.
A living soul. Human being is still a scientific reference that colors the actual essence of the spirit. Human being still placates a ad hominem that is only applicable to the man and its form, wherein the real spiritual sense is the intangible side. That's the side that needs to be recognized for its specialness, that it's what guides the man, not some regulation written on a piece of paper. And as so long as that man can use his spirit to guide that body, having the full power to go about the life, doing his own thing without causing any harm, detriment, or anything to anybody else, then the world owes him the duty to leave him alone too. Very simple. So let's take a look at the last one. Remember that bay, and it comes from finance and expense. You know, if they're going to hold you in a sick bay, or you're going to have a horse in its bay in the barn, you know, those things are expensive, and somebody's got to finance them, right? So, like I've said before, this estate is already valued. It's already had an evaluation. There's already an extension of credit that's been given to it. And the state operates on this in order to pass its instrumentalities, such as a court case. You know, somebody's posing a debt, but the problem is nobody's recognizing where that debt belongs, right? So if the state holds off. Go ahead.
So you allow them to label you or your property whatever they want without knowing, you know, what you need to know, you know, then they got a hold of you. Because, you know, that's what I figured out. When you allow them to label you as what they want and your property, they can do whatever the hell they want to you.
Correct. And it's the premise that the ownership of property resides in the state, and this is why you get a certificate of title for that motor vehicle that you register. And it's all on a presumption still. Again, remember, a motor vehicle operator's lease, you're supposed to have a handwritten statement of consent or of intent to perform at least 50% of its use for trade or business. And that's the performance of the function of the public office, saying that for that license, then you must first have an oath of office to be able to do so. That means you have to go through an election process and be elected or appointed by somebody else so qualified to give such dual oath. And it didn't happen. I mean, that's a pretty extensive procedure to have to be in that position, as well as the fact that that's supposed to be something deemed necessary by the board, which is the Secretary of Commerce and the Secretary of Treasury, to make sure that your resident presence is deemed necessary as such federal, state, or municipal officer or agent. It never happened. And that's a lot to defeat. I mean, you got to show me all of those points along the way where there was, in fact, a communication somewhere up and down the chain with Congress so that either you or I could even be partners in the exchange of collecting taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. And show me that. That's the authority that's required. That's the authority that's presumed, assumed, and implied if you have an ID or a driver's license or something as such, including through an employment application, just an employee ID. Because there are some people that don't have such items. Some people don't even have a Social Security card, never got a Social Security number assigned. But they're still able to get a job and had an employee ID with a number on it. But that doesn't mean they gave them a Social Security number. But it's still placating that you have a personal image, I'm age, competent to contract, that somebody can hold accountable. And that's it. Accountable for what? Does it extend beyond that private contract? This is why people are confused when they get a job and they fill out those forms and all of a sudden they're paying taxes. You don't have to. You can fill out one form, and it's not the W-2, it's the W-4. And it's a religious exemption. Exempt. That's all you got to put. They're not even supposed to question it. And when they do, you question where their authority is to say otherwise. It's in their code. That's their form. Why would they question their own form? So let's get into it. Possession of properties in the state, and it's a term known as abeyance. And again, like I said, it's all military. The state is military, and the property is held in abeyance by the military, just like a national treasure for those people that have a valid claim on those national treasures. Even if it's a record that creates a certain defamation, either against that person or the United States, because that is the initial financial system that created that person, that legal fiction, through an agreement with an official of the state to give a Social Security number as an assignment to the legal name, identifying a record only. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one thing also people don't even know. A good question to ask them, judges or the courts and IRS, that you are to ask them to send you their statutory and or delegated authority to require you to show up to where they want you to, so they can try to do what they want to you. A lot of people don't even know that. So I've written quite a few things down from another guy to put in a notice, so that way you can let them know that even this other stuff.
Yeah, it's a notice of error, wrongful disposition. So we have before us, it says abeyance. Abeyance. This is the root. Oops, excuse me. Even though it's changed in form, it's still pronounced the same way. This is a morpheme of a grapheme, as the term is used in a different form, and therefore the adoption of it as a noun, whereas before it was what? An adjective? So now they've created a noun by changing it in form and adding a prefix and a suffix. Okay? So the living soul is changed to a defendant, which is a third person abstract noun, meaning total fiction of the same thing. Defend ant. It's got a prefix and a suffix, and the root word is actually a verb. Okay? It's not the descriptor of the living soul. It's something totally different. So, abeyance says 1520s, state of expectation. So, mom went to the hospital and she was in a state of expectations. She had a baby in abeyance, a baby in the hold. You get what I'm saying there? Anybody have questions on that? Mom was pregnant and there's a baby in the hold. He was being suspended by the waters.
In the hole, Keith, are you talking about the woman carrying the baby, holding the baby, or after it's discharged from the womb, it's being held?
No, well, while she's pregnant, while she's in a state of expectation.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, she's pregnant now, and the baby is in her womb. That's the hold. The womb is known as the hold, like he said earlier. Expectation, especially in a lawsuit, because mom's belly was the vessel. Mom was the vessel, and the belly was the hold. From Old French. Go ahead.
So, Keith, when they talk about the hull of a ship, are they talking because that holds items in the hull of a ship is almost similar to hold?
Yes.
Okay. I yield.
It's like abundance. That's bund. B-U-N-D is the same as B-A-N-D, which is the same as B-I-N-D, which is the same as B-O-N-D, which is the same as B-E-N-D. They're all connections. They're all bonds. They all bind some way. They're all banding in one form or another. Goes on to say, also expectation, especially in a lawsuit. Especially in a lawsuit. Aspiration, powerful desire. Did mom and dad desire to copulate, procreate, and inspired in that session? Their aspirations came out, and lo and behold, we have something growing in mom's hold. Noun of a condition from a beer, aspire after. Gape, open wide. From at, be open. To yawn, gape, see a bash. See how the bay comes to mean so many more different things now? Your mouth, when you're yawning, is just like a bay. It gapes. To be open. There is an open inlet to the ocean. It's called a bay. They all mean the same thing. When you can learn to simplify this shit and understand what they mean, and that the true position you have as the one that's financing this stuff, the expense is the fact that they have property of yours in abeyance and you just want your property. You have to learn how to express that. How is that? It's done through the credit system. You financed everything because everything is to your credence. What is your credence? The name. They enumerated it, and it's your name, and it's a copyright issue. What's the copyright value? Well, it's what's already in the record. They've been using your name as an officer or an agent on all their financial instruments, those paychecks and everything, where it shows that you paid a financial insurance contribution. I mean, it proves that you did contribute. Condition in French. Go ahead.
Well, to have your name copyright protected, then it really protects your name even from them using it, because without having that done, I believe they all have the legal right to do that. They may not have the lawful right, but they have the legal right because they work under something else.
Well, that's why they say there's a premise to change the legal name. Change your name and give notice to the state and everybody that the prior name is no longer under any contract with what is it called, rescission and various other terms you can use to withdraw any contracts, surrender the driver's license and all that. So now you're going to be doing everything under a new name, and there's no way they can be confused. So we go on. It says, originally in French, a legal term, condition of a person in expectation or hope of receiving property. So who is the one that is supposed to receive the property if not the beneficiary, right? Or benefactor? Equal consideration, equal benefit. If I give to the beneficiary and it's to their benefit, and they're supposed to return that, credit is credit, or give back credit where credit is due. Shouldn't that return back to the benefactor? That's the circulation, guys. Simple. However, in that, of course, remember, the energy that you're putting out is a greater energy, and it's going to create that excess that they'll be able to do whatever they need to make their profit, but it goes along with the consequence that you leave me the fuck alone. I know I'm the creditor. You either do what you're supposed to do and make a wise investment and create a credit for yourself so I get my credit back, or you're fucked. Like I said, you can call me a snitch. I'm snitching on my daddy, and everybody's going to hear about it. It turned around in English law to mean condition of property temporarily without an owner. So the property held in the abeyance of the state is temporarily without an owner. So what is that property and how do you make a claim to it? Again, if I'm the one that financed everything, like I said, I worked my ass off for all these people all my life. I paid the Federal Insurance Contributions Act and the Social Security and everything, and I know that I paid taxes unduly. I should be getting those taxes back. All the child support that I paid, all the fines, fees, and penalties I paid. If I'd have known what I was doing back then, none of that would have happened. It would have all been an extension of credit, and everybody would have been satisfied. None of these defamations would have been made against the record, because that's truly where the defamation sits, is the integrity of the record. The errors are in the record. Now, I'm the only one that can point those the errors out, and I have to stand up to them myself because I'm the one that put them in there, and therefore I have to repent and admit that I can't do that again. It's not that I won't. I can't. Now that I know better and I've repented, that's the true meaning of repenting, is agreeing that you're not going to do it again. I can't. I've made that promise to myself. My word is my bond. Now all I can do is go forth and make sure every record I put forth is going to be true, correct, and usable. Careful to maintain good works so that it's profitable unto men, both sides of the record, mine and theirs. My cup welleth over. It's not a matter of owing a debt. I'm the creditor. Accept the welling over of the credit and do what you're supposed to. That's all it is. Hence, state of suspended action or existence. Now, this is what I'm talking about in that person. The state of suspended action or existence is that probated estate. The states are administrating a probated estate that is suspended in action because nobody's come forth and made that claim. Nobody's come up and received the property, the true benefit, all the credit that's been established in that record, in that name. It needs to be settled. That's it. Once you settle that record, and again, remember, there's two sides to that ledger. On their side, they've got a settled set of books, debits and credits. It's on your side, everything's showing up debit. So you have to receive your credits. It turned around in English law to mean a condition of property temporarily without an owner. In those receipts, when you do your transactions, again, I urge everybody to look at this. Don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. Don't believe your mother, for crying out loud. Do this yourself. It's very easy exercise. The next time you go to the store and you use a credit card or a debit card, understand some basic principles here. When you look at that receipt, it's going to have a bunch of numbers and everything on there. It's going to say U.S. debit. Okay? Understand two things. If you used a credit card, shouldn't that say credit? And if it doesn't and it says U.S. debit, does that mean there's something that's supposed to be balanced yet? If so, how do you do so? Again, if the commanding officer shall cause receipts to be issued, they may serve the spoliated owner indemnity. So you have to qualify that in the name of the United States as a friend of the United States and give it back to them. Say, hey, they posed this debt against you. I used this routing and or this account and everything, and they gave me a receipt saying there's a debit against you. Okay, it's their obligation. It should correct that debit automatically on the side. And if it doesn't, then there's a little more work to do with the contract to set it up. So it's all a matter of putting your own conditions in these contracts and stuff and letting them know that you are home. Daddy's home. Daddy's home. We continue on. Abash. Discomfort. Make ashamed. That's that defamation, that record. Perplex. Embarrass. Lose one's composure. Composure. We talked about poise earlier. Pose and poise. Composure. Position. Deposition. Present stem of asbear, to lose one's composure. Be startled, be stunned. Lose one's composure reminds me of the dolls that the little figurine dolls that you have on a little platform that you squeeze the platform and they fall limp. You let go of the platform and it springs back up. In your person, you lose composure. You ended up in a piece of folded paper, don't even realize it. That's your prison, your thought system, by the words. Originally, to put to confusion from any strong emotion, whether of fear, of wonder, shame, or admiration, but restricted in modern times to effective shame. So they use the word, we're going to convict you, as a modern term of shame. Convict, with V-I-C-T, with victory. I'm already convicted, motherfuckers. First element is as, out. From Latin ex, see ex, as in expensive. Out of pensive. The second may be bare, again referring to be open, gape. If the notion is gaping with astonishment. Possibly ultimately imitative of opening the lips. Again, like I said, coin your words or purse your lips. Know what you're speaking. Exercise, be excise, the cutting of the tongue. Middle English Compendium also compares Old French abaser, bow, diminish, lower oneself. That's that person. That's why that's the finance. You have to bow your person down so that they can see that it's honorable. But they have to realize where it's bowing down from. Where's the credence? Bay, opening in a wall again. To gape. Space, especially between two columns. Again, look at that Social Security card. Where do you think them two columns are? That's the bay of the person, and it's enumerated. That's the slave. It's kept in its stall. That's the installment plan. Come out of her. And I think that's it. Suspension, a temporary halting, deprivation of office, privilege, etc. Suspense, abeyance. So suspended license is being held in abeyance. See what I'm saying? There's something being held in abeyance. It's on hold or in hold. Temporary cessation, state of not being carried out of legal matters. Moratorium, authorization to a debtor to postpone due payment. Is that the deferment? Go ahead.
Well, when you're talking about the coming out of her, would that sound like it's an exodus?
Well, of course,
Okay.
and that's what I'm trying to tell everybody. Somebody asked earlier, where do we start? You undo the education and you start all over. You have to re-educate yourself. And again, this is not something anybody else can do for you. They may try, they may attempt, but you sitting there trying to fling things at the wall that you got from this guy or this guy or this guy, proving that nobody's stuff works because you think that the paperwork is going to work for you when you've done no work. You have to do this, folks. You have to re-educate yourself. Goes on to say, originally a legal term for authorization to a debtor to postpone due payment. That's the deferment of a debt, like we heard earlier. Recess, act of receding or going back or away. So now you see how holding, as in a bay window, holding plants and stuff, also is relative to going back or away because it's a recess. What's a bay window in a house? Well, it's a recessed portion of the room. Remember the old schools? You go down the hallway and there's a room, and the doorway to the classroom was a recessed doorway. It sat within the wall, showing there's a nice thick entranceway into the room. Window. Look at this, wind eye, literally wind eye, because before you can make use of that wind, you have to see what you're doing so you can say something about it. Otherwise, the only way you use that wind is by your breath. It's literally about expressing yourself. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. What's the window to the person? Isn't that the same thing? Just depends on how you bend it.
Well,
Fractional light.
the media, they really keep up with us with that stuff because there's a commercial going out there. I think it's Anderson window maybe, and they're talking about the eyes being the windows to the soul. So
Absolutely.
they know, they keep up with us.
Oh yeah, keep them clean, folks. Keep them clean. Come with clean hands and clean eyes.
This would go with the redefining of words, the redefinition of words in Black Law's dictionary.
Absolutely. It goes with the legalese definition and we saw in Cornell. It's all about prestige. Break it down to its simple stuff, and you see again how much this stuff just is repetitive. And when you learn the simple terms to use and show comprehension that you know how they're used in their world, their banking world, their credit world, the trust, the contracts, and how it displaces you from your true capacity, and then state that true capacity, they're all fucked because they're all supposed to work for you. Understand this. Particularly if you've already worked your ass off all your life, paid into that system, and didn't understand you weren't qualified to do so. The New Deal was an indoctrination to get people to believe that they could accept those obligations and other securities of the United States and make it so without teaching them how to qualify their signature on those so they wouldn't be ripped off and everything taken out of their lives as a private investment, as a 1031 exchange. I know how it all happens. person, an individual. Again, as it relates to the records maintained on the individual, 5 USC 552A. A human being, again, you'll find that in their definitions. I think it's 1 USC 1 or 1 USC. You'll see several of them in there. I think it's defined in there along with insane and newborn child. From Old French personne, human being, anyone, person. And these go on. You can click on this arrow over here and go over. But this is the unique thing about Etom Online. It gives you all these references to show you how to go down and find out. You know, everything we're talking about is about the individual. It's the person. It's their creation of a legal name to represent an estate that is enumerated that they are holding in your benefit, and all you have to do is go forth and make that claim. In the meantime, all the credits that have been developed in that name under any kind of investment, even if it's an employment application or anything like that, the supposed credits are supposed to go into that account. That's why it's important to understand the courts using that firm name and the medical prescriptions. When you get those medical prescriptions, you see that they're using the same firm name. They're using you as an investor and using the Social Security number as an obligor number to access the credits. Those are your damn credits. You're supposed to have access yourself to make sure that your medical needs are maintained, because you can give them the direct routing source to those credits as they're established by yourself. You're the original authority in all matters like that. Prudent, wise, discerning, judicious, having full powers, folks, with knowledge, deliberate, and directly. Anybody ask me my occupation? I'm a professor. I'm a professor. What am I going to profess? I'm going to profess the truth as near as may be. Let's look it up, you and me. Browbeat, to bully, to bear down with stern or arrogant weight or looks. To weigh down. Remember we read that earlier? To weigh down, to bear down with stern or arrogant looks. Vehement, impetuous, ardent. Amazing, folks, amazing. So hopefully we understand this system and how it works. And remember, folks, we looked at the definition of loan too etymologically, and that's an act of God. So again, you're loaning them those data elements. You're giving them data elements. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't have them. They're supposed to give them back. Well, they can't give the data elements back once you give them to them. They can't just unknow them, but they can give you credit in exchange. That's the deal. You guys got anything? Anybody? Anybody? John, what are you doing there, brother? All right. Well, it looks like my board fell asleep on me. So with that,
No, just blank with questions.
oh, okay.
We're still here. I'm just I'm multitasking while I'm listening too. So
Well,
now you stopped off. Were you doing all the etymologies? Are you utilizing any codes that's associated with some of these etymologies that we use today? Because I was looking up, like want. Because in the talking, you were talking about a want. It could be a diminished capacity or a lack of ideas, right? So when you talked about mother and father coming together, copulating, it has to be a desire, because a desire would be a longing instead of diminished capacity, right? So it would make sense.
Right. Let me see here. Showed this earlier. And this is finance charge under 15 U.S. Code 1605. And it says determination of finance charge. In this definition, it says finance charge defined, except as otherwise provided in this section, the amount of the finance charge in connection with any consumer credit transaction for which you should get a consumer receipt for, the one that's going to say U.S. debit, or if it says something else, please let me know. Every one I get says U.S. debit. Shall be determined as the sum of all charges payable directly or indirectly by the person to whom credit is extended. So if it's my credit, if it's to my credence, and I'm financing it in connection with that consumer credit transaction, this is telling me that who I extended that credit to, payable directly or indirectly by the person to whom the credit is extended. So when the bank gets my signature and credit is extended to them, they are responsible. They are payable directly or indirectly by the person to who that credit is extended. I have to extend that credit to them in order to buy that house, right? This is the part of the process that's not being recognized. It's my goddamn credit to begin with. Where do you think the credit comes from when they go to the federal discount window? Again, that Social Security number on the back of the card, that's a number you're going to find on Federal Reserve notes, $1 bills. You're going to find that's a routing number for redemption, so you redeem those notes. As an extension of credit as well. Like I said, we went over the definition of creditor and credit. So again, there is no extension of credit unless it's from you. The bank can't have assets to extend such credit, can they? Let's look at deposit. 12 U.S.C. 813. More definitions. I love definitions. I love me some definitions. We go down here to deposit. L. The term deposit means the unpaid balance. The term deposit means the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a bank or saving association in the usual course of business and for which it has given or is obligated to give credit. So they've either, this is the only two options it gives here, folks, understand this. They have either already given credit or are obligated to give credit. Okay? either conditionally or unconditionally, to a commercial, checking, savings, time, or thrift account, or which is evidenced by its certificate of deposit, thrift certificate, investment certificate, certificate of indebtedness, or similar name. Did you know when you open that account, that's an application for involvement in a certificate of indebtedness where you get to hold an account under that certificate of indebtedness? There's already a certificate in play. Okay?
So Keith, is that an indemnification? They are indemnifying the man or the woman that's making application. Am I correct?
That's what they're supposed to do. And what you have to do is give them that receipt back to make that recognizable. That's what's not happening. It's the end of the process and nobody's finishing it. There's no circulation. You get a receipt that says U.S. debit. By rule, the MasterCard, Visa card, and Discover cards are supposed to be, whether they're a debit card or credit card, once you use them, they're supposed to be treated as credit. How come they're not treated as credit? What do you mean? Well, use one of those cards, and it doesn't matter if it's a debit card or a credit card, or if it's got MasterCard, Visa card, or Discover on it. They're supposed to be treated as credit, but how come you get a receipt that says U.S. debit? So anyway, let me finish up here. Or a check or draft drawn against a deposit account and certified by the bank or savings association, or a letter of credit, or a traveler's check on which the bank or savings association is primarily liable. So if they're primarily liable, you could only possibly be secondarily liable. Again, like we spoke about last night in the stream then about a secondary billing and primary billing. The landlord has a primary billing to keep the utilities and everything on in case the property goes vacant during the winter months or something, and they have to keep the pipes nice and warm so it doesn't freeze up and burst and cause a plumbing problem, or worse yet, cause any kind of flooding or many things that could be just destroy the entire value of the home if that one thing isn't maintained. So it's a matter of conservation easement, wildlife, fisheries, and everything, maintaining the environment. You don't want a pipe freezing and breaking up and causing problems, and then breaking a gas line and then blowing the place up. All kinds of things that you need to think about, and that's a primary liability that's already there. When you do the contract for a rental agreement, they're turning around and moving those liabilities. So when you learn how to sign your contracts and everything without recourse, without prejudice, not taking upon those liabilities, but we're actually the benefactor here to receive the benefit, and it's just going to circulate through our residents anyway. Granted, if I might use some gas, yeah, there might be some minor user fees, but that's done by a credit routing, and again, not by my expense. It's already taken care of. Provided that without limiting the generality of the term money or its equivalent, any such account or instrument, understand the importance of this, any such account or instrument must be regarded as evidencing the receipt of the equivalent of money when credited or issued in exchange for checks or drafts or for a promissory note upon which the person obtaining any such credit or instrument is primarily or secondarily liable. So when you get that,
also sounds like when you talk about the equivalent of money, that would mean like all the applications that they're having man or woman to apply for any type of service, that would be an equivalent of exchange of money, because they can literally take that to the treasury and have the, what they call the discount window, and get a,
Right.
okay, a
Yeah,
return
and
on
that's what I'm
savings.
saying here. Um, in exchange, evidencing the receipt of equivalent of money. Doesn't say an amount of money. And then it says when credited or issued in exchange for checks or drafts or for a promissory note. So if I
So I'm
take on a
thinking it,
secondary liability, hold on, if I take on a secondary liability because I've got evidence in receipt known as a birth certificate, and I qualify it with the receipt of, say, the stores, the grocery store I go to every month, and I save up a month's worth of receipts, and I qualify it with a birth certificate evidencing the receipts, and then give a directive signing it off to the Treasury to discharge the credits now, because it says equivalent of money when credited or issued in exchange for checks. That receipt is a check. Paid to the order of.
and
Go
may
ahead.
I? And I was also thinking too that the application could be in receipt, because the one receiving it is the receiver. And so that would also can be seen as a receipt as well, right?
Right. A temporary receivership by the one as a holder in due course, the principal party of interest for all investments and otherwise. Without that name, you wouldn't be able to enumerate anything. Therefore, your number wouldn't matter. Your number's up. I'm done using it. I surrender it all back to the state. The credits need to be released. It's no longer fungible. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the U.S. Postal Service, the one that's truly supposed to hold those titles. They're the ones that give out the Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship certificates to make sure that those weights and scales are putting the proper value in those exchanges. They're the ones that are ultimately liable for those exchanges. See what I'm saying? Everything's a real estate investment.
So Keith, excuse my ignorance if I may. So in an application state, when someone's making application and you're giving application, say you're going to receive some type of service and you're giving that applications, are they looking at you in that sense of also being equal to what their position is in some kind of
I
like
don't know.
wage?
Again, it's these people are not a collective unit doing it all as one unit. Everybody's taking their own interpretation and misapplying it and not understanding what's written in law, and they're using the excuse that I'm just doing my job. You'll have to talk to my boss. Your boss says, well, you have to talk to the legal team. Legal team doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, because if they did, they'd know that they have no authority. Understand, again, it's the American Bar Association that puts out that there is no birth registration in the United States, and every last one of them placating that, well, there's a United States citizen that we're trying to represent here, and yet not represent the interest of the United States. These people are babbling idiots.
Yeah, there are people that don't want to believe that the birth certificate is fraudulent, and that even though it in some way has you as a U.S. citizen, it does not state on there that you're a U.S. citizen. You're born in a state that belongs to the United States government, but it just, I tell them, look on it. It does not state that you are an exact U.S. citizen, but all of them are fraudulent, all these birth certificates. And plus, when you sign these contracts, you're seen as an estate. You're seen as an entity. You're not seen as like he was saying, a spiritual soul, something of God.
Correct. It's everything. Like I speak about all the time, there's a distinction between the spiritual and the manual. And until you learn that very distinct difference and comprehend, there's a much better way to guide the manual self through the spiritual existence by looking at everything you're doing and understand you've been deeply lied to. And it's a very comprehensive learning that you have to relearn.
Well, Keith, can anyone really be born in a state? Because wouldn't that be like a state of mind? Because when you're crossing boundaries, there's nothing saying that you're entering a state unless there is a signpost put up saying this state of something or other. So you're just
Well,
being
yeah, and
born on the land.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when Rebel Studios said that, but yeah, that's actually true. You're not born in a state. It's I was born of the flesh and blood, and I don't care how you describe it. I'm still a child of God everywhere I go, and what you have in that documentation certainly is a distinct representation of some sort, but it's certainly not mine. That was created by the state for my beneficial use. Pure and simple.
Have you ever been interested in doing a space in X, or are you not interested in that platform?
I don't know. I haven't even looked at it yet. It's the first time hearing it. So.
Because I go in spaces and we do talk about notices and people talking about God and that we're under God and all this, but when I try to explain quite a bit of this stuff to them, they can't understand it, and so they just revert to the notices and what they're doing, because they want to just listen to the ones that sound like they know everything, but I mean they know what they're doing and they are getting actions being taken place once they send the notices, but they're not using the proper wordings because they're still using human being or man or whatever. I mean, they use we the people under sui juris, common law, but they don't know all the other proper words to use.
Yeah,
also helps take you further out of their system.
Yeah, and when you correct the verbiage that you're using, that's the main point of it. That's why I say you really do have an extensive learning to go through to understand how you've been indoctrinated through that language and things like legalese that teach you that, first of all, your foundation of knowledge is set up on a principle of remembering things, and that's not a good thing to do. And then in that remembering, they teach you to in a very delineated way or linear way, I guess, to stick to that and not let anything distract you from that. And that's the most inherent self-imprisonment that you can go through by letting somebody indoctrinate you like that. It's cutting off your ability to understand that, hey, I've got to be able to learn all my life. That remembering something today may not be quite the same 10 years from now. So it's not a matter of remembering, but a matter of having the facts before me so I can know how to use them intuitively for my advantage and my benefit. Because life changes as we go on. And that means the inherent, again, is not to sit stagnant in a bay in an installment plan, stalled for life because of one thing. Many people get into this environment, this society, and that very occupation. They ask you when you're little kids, little boys and girls, what do you want to be when you grow up, Tommy? Well, I want to be a fireman. Or I want to be a police officer. They're already set in mind to have this characteristic employment situation, to be some kind of heroic thing in person without understanding what it is. And that those very classifications of people is a limitation to their true talents, of being the real hero they need to be to the real people that are lost, the next generation, the ones that aren't learning it. They're learning transgenderism and all this fucked up shit, and it's fucking sickening. You want to see a bottleneck in humanity and its population? You know, live for the next 1,000 years and see how humanity bottlenecks because of what we're going through today. You probably won't see that bottleneck in your lifetime, except for maybe a third, fourth generation from now. So if I had great grandchildren, they might see it.
I will say, if you get on any, like with David Jose and Pilsner, and you'll see ones with Angry Pop in it, that when you get into them, like, me and you both, we get excited, we get into, our feelings with all this stuff. I recently learned that I've had to, like, I'm talking now kind of slow and peaceful, that I've had to start doing that, because when you get into yourself, and wanting everybody to, finally learn what it kind of prevents them from actually listening to you like they should. And so it does help, whenever you get into them, if you want to speak and you get a speaker. I like it where they have, they have the like button with the thumbs up and the laughing face with the tears. They just don't have that on this, where we can say, yeah, I agree 100%, I love that with the heart, and all that. And there's only like 2, 4, 6, 8 emojis, I think, 6 or 8, but they don't use very many. But I wish they used more, like the angry face, so you can make an angry face instead of a thumbs down, because they don't know if you're disagreeing or just don't like it. So I don't like that one. But,
yeah. And that's another thing, that's a symbology of the even the emojis that we use today. It's very distinct and for some people, and very confusing and mixed and jumbled for others. So it's a matter of, again, of interpretation and intent of conveyance. So with that, anybody got anything to say on the way out? We're going to finish her up, and we'll see everybody again tomorrow.
Oh, good show.
I'm good. Great talking to you and learning a little bit more.
Absolutely. Always appreciate it. Always appreciate it. All right. Well, in the meantime, then, you guys know me. I love you. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. It means to say I don't care if you hate me. So may God bless you, and have a good night.